Good morning, students. Today we are taking first lesson from the supplementary Footprint Without Feet. The chapter is A Triumph of Surgery. I will read the chapter and then give the explanation according to the paragraph. I was really worried about Tricky this time. I had pulled up my car when I saw him in the street with his mistress, and I was shocked at his appearance. He had become ugly fat, like a bloated sausage with a leg at each corner. His eyes, bloodshot and rheumy, stared straight ahead, and his tongue lolled from his jaws. Mrs. Pamphry hastened to explain. He was so listless, Mr. Herriot. He seemed to have no energy. I thought he must be suffering from malnutrition. So I have been giving him some little extras between meals to build him up, some malt and cod liver oil and a bowl of Horlicks at night to make him sleep. Nothing much really. And did you cut down on the sweet things as I told you? Oh, oh, I did for a bit, but he seemed to be so weak I had to relent. He does love cream cakes and chocolates so. I can't bear to refuse him. I looked down again at that was the trouble. Tricky's only fault was greed. He had never been known to refuse food. He would tackle a meal at any hour of the day or night. And I wondered about all the things Mrs. Pamphry hadn't mentioned. Are you giving him plenty of exercise? Well, he has his little walks with me, as you can see, but Hodkins, the gardener, has been down with lumbago, so there has been no right throwing lately. So we know that Tricky is a dog who is very fat, and the narrator, Mr. Herriot, he was just coming from his clinic and he happened to see Tricky and Mrs. Pamphry walking. So when he saw the dog, Tricky, he was surprised and shocked that how come this little dog has become so fat. He could hardly walk because of his fat body. And Mrs. Pamphry was just pulling the dog. When he saw them, he stopped, came out of the car, and started talking to Mrs. Pamphry about the dog's health. So he just asked, what happened to Tricky? So she said that he's all right and he's doing his work, but I could not stop his meal. I could give him the food what he liked, especially the sweet things which he liked very much, and after the meals, in between of the meals, I used to give him every now and then. Mr. Herriot understood the greediness of Tricky. So he just asked, are you giving him some exercises? Then Mrs. Pamphry said, not exactly, but still I take him for walking. And my servant, he is down with fever. Actually, he used to take him roundabout, but since he is down in fever, he is not able to take him. So that is what. Hearing all these things, Mr. Harriot understood that Tricky is in danger, and very soon he will be getting a call in the night or in any day of the time that Tricky is sick, please come and help him. I tried to sound severe. Now I really mean this. If you don't cut his food right down and give him more exercises, he is going to be really ill. You must harden your heart and keep him on a very strict diet. Mrs. Pamphry rubbed her heads. Oh, I will, Mr. Harriot. I'm sure you are right. But it is so difficult, so very difficult. She set off, head down, along the road, as if determined to put the new regime into practice immediately. I watched their progress with growing concern. Tricky was tottering along in his little tweed coat. He had a whole wardrobe of these coats for the cold weather and a raincoat for the wet days. He struggled on, drooping in his harness. I thought it wouldn't be long before I heard from Mrs. Pamphry. So Mr. Harriot again warned Mrs. Pamphry that she should be very strict with Tricky and very especially with his diet. She should not give any extra meal, especially between of the meals, and very especially the sweet things, because it's making him more and more fat and he's coming out very bulgy. So he is not able to walk properly and it will be a trouble for Tricky, and there won't be much days for him. So better be strict with him and give him more exercises, and don't give much food to Tricky. Mrs. Pamphry said, okay, sir, I will try. Of course, it is very, very difficult for me to stop meal in between meals for him, but still I will try. So as she was going, it looked like as if she is now determined and very much concerned about her pet dog Tricky, and maybe she decided that yes, today onwards I will be strict. But then Harriot was knowing about it, that he is not going to survive, because Mrs. Pamphry had given him a lot of things, very especially the wardrobes for him, a lot of coats of different seasons, different weather. For the rainy season, raincoat was for him so that he may not get wet. For the cold season, there were a lot of fur coats so that he may be protected from the cold, and so on so forth. So Harriot was knowing that definitely there would be a call about Tricky's health. The expected call came within a few days. Mrs. Pamphry was distraught. Tricky would eat nothing, refused even his favorite dishes, and besides, he had bouts of vomiting. He spent all his time lying on a rug, panting. Didn't want to go for a walk, didn't want to do anything. I had made my plans in advance. The only way was to get Tricky out of the house for a period. I suggested that he be hospitalized for about a fortnight to be kept under observation. The poor lady almost swooned. She was sure he would pine and die if he did not see her every day. But I took a firm line. Tricky was very ill, and this was the only way to save him. In fact, I thought it best to take him without delay, and followed by Mrs. Pamphre's willings, I marched out to the car carrying the little dog wrapped in a blanket. So, as I said earlier, that Mr. Harriet was really worried about Ricky, and he knew that very soon he will get the call, and within few days the expected call came. Mrs. Pamphre was very much worried and little tensed. She just said that Tricky has refused to eat even his favorite dish. The sweets, the cakes, chocolates, everything he has stopped. And now he's not eating anything, but he is vomiting every now and then. And he's just lying down there and shivering. Harriet knew that this is the right time for him to take Tricky away from Mrs. Pamphre. And he said to Pamphre that it is good that I should take him and hospitalize him. Then only he can get well soon, because I cannot be there in your house. I cannot live in your house. So if Tricky is there in my hospital, so I can take care of him 24 hours. But then Mrs. Pamphre didn't want to get away from him, because that Tricky may not live without seeing her. But Harriet did not waste his time. He immediately took him, covered him in the blanket, and carried towards his hospital. Just came out of the house to take him in his car. The entire staff was roused, and maids rushed in and out, bringing his day bed, his night bed, favorite cushions, toys, and rubber rings, breakfast bowl, lunch bowl, supper bowl. Realizing that my car would never hold all the stuff, I started to drive away. As I moved off, Mrs. Pamphre, with a despairing cry, threw an armful of the little coats through the window. I looked in the mirror before the corner of the drive. Everybody was in tears. Out on the road, I glanced down at the pathetic little animal gasping on the seat by my side. I patted the head, and Tricky made a brave effort to wag his tail. Poor old lad, I said. You haven't a kick in you, but I think I know a cure for you. Now, as he was taking Tricky, covered in the blanket, running his car, the whole staff of Mrs. Pamphre, that the maid and other people, all started running. And Mrs. Pamphre started telling to everyone, giving orders to everyone, take his cushions, take his toys, take his breakfast, lunch, supper bowl, everything, and keep in the car. Harriet knew that his car will not be enough for him to carry everything. So he just started the car and moved. Mrs. Pamphre ran with some of his favorite coats and threw it through the window. And when Harriet saw from the back view mirror, he saw that everyone were in tears, as if they are not going to see him, and it was the last time they saw him. When he saw Tricky on his side seat, he was feeling very pity at him, and he just asked, "Oh my God, you are really very bad condition, and you still have that eagerness to recover as you struggle to wag your tail." And he promised Tricky that he will definitely cure him. So students, enough for today. Homework for you. 3 questions I have given. Find out the answers of these 3 questions. Read the chapter 5 times and write 10 difficult words and their meaning. This is homework for all of you. Thank you. Have a nice day.